Okay, welcome back. Today we're going to make a chocolate cake. It's a very easy recipe. There's no icing, it's just plain and simple chocolate cake. The ingredients that you'll need are a cup of white sugar, a cup of self-raising flour, 2 or 3 tablespoons of cocoa, 3 tablespoons of margarine melted in a glass or in a dish. You'll need 2 eggs as well, and that's pretty much it. So let's begin. The first step is get 3 scoops of margarine. I'm using Nuttelex because I find it works better for cakes. Get 3 scoops of that and melt them in a dish or a glass. I put them in a glass. Just put it in the microwave is fine. Then get 1 cup of sugar, 1 cup of self-raising flour, and 3 tablespoons of cocoa, and sift them and put them in the bowl. So I'm going to do that. Okay, so I've got 1 cup of sugar, and it's just white sugar. It can be caster sugar if you like, I'm just using normal sugar. So just chuck that in the bowl. If it's new, you can probably just pour it straight in, but if it's been sitting in a jar, you might want to sift it because you often get lumps from the moisture. And there doesn't seem to be any lumps in there, so I'll just pour it in. Okay, then the next step is to get 1 cup of self-raising flour. It's a good idea once again to sift it, just to get any lumps out. So I'll do that now. So 1 cup of self-raising flour. Make sure you use self-raising and not plain, because if you use plain flour, it won't rise and it will stay like a pancake. So if you want a chocolate pancake, then by all means. If you've only got plain flour, you can mix bicarb soda into it, and that will essentially make it into self-raising flour. But I'll cover that some other time. So just sift the flour and make sure that there's no lumps in it, because if there's lumps in the flour, they'll be quite hard to get out later. Okay, so that's all in. Then once you've got those 2 ingredients in, just mix them together with a spoon. So they're kind of mixed together. And then you need the cocoa. So you can add as much cocoa as you like. I'm going to put 3 tablespoons, or 3, these are kind of dessert spoons. It doesn't matter what size, just keep it consistent for the whole recipe, and then you'll be fine. So 3 heap spoons. If you like it particularly chocolatey, you can put more in, but if you put too much in, it'll be bitter because there won't be enough sugar. And as always, it's a balance. Now once again, make sure there's no lumps in the cocoa. You just have to make sure there's no lumps in general, because lumps tend to get harder to get rid of the more ingredients that you have. Now once you get the cocoa in, you should add in liquid. So in this case we're adding 3 spoonfuls of margarine or butter, and also have to add about half a cup of milk. You can use any type of milk that you like, but I would suggest light white or full cream milk. Don't try and use skim milk or some other animal milk because it probably won't work. For the milk, it's about half a cup. I normally just do it by eye, so it needs to be like a batter when you mix it in. So it's about half a cup, but if it looks like it's too wet, you might have to add more flour or more sugar just to make it thick like porridge, but not sloppy like, say, soup. So okay, so put half a cup of milk. And then just mix that in. It's quite normal to have a few lumps in it. But you just have to bash them out gently. If the texture seems a bit dry, don't worry too much because we haven't put the eggs in yet. When you do, it will change again. Just make sure all the dry ingredients are mixed together and then you can crack the 2 eggs in. Now, I guess I should let you know, these are chicken eggs. If you use an egg that's bigger than 700 grams, obviously adjust your recipe, but just put 1 or 2, normally 2 eggs for this kind of recipe. Now, I don't know if you can see, but the egg yolks are standing up quite high. That's a sign of freshness. If you've got eggs that have been around for a while, when you break them, the yolk will tend to break. So it's not the end of the world, but if you use fresh ingredients, it will make the flavour a lot better. Now, a lot of people would use an electric mixer. I think it works better if you use a spoon. If you use a mixer, it tends to dry out the mixture because it gets a lot of air through it. And while you want some air, if you mix it for too long, it will actually be like a packet cake that you buy in a shop, where you get that kind of foamy, dry texture. So, like, you do have to spoon it around, and you'll see if you've done it right, you get little patches where bubbles come up and they pop. So just make it this kind of texture, so it's still runny, but it's kind of thick and runny, like really thick cream. And once it's like this, make sure there's no lumps, and you're ready to put in the oven. So just get a tray, this is a baking cake tin. It's about the size of dinner plate. If I pour this into here, when it cooks, it'll be about as high as this, or a little bit higher. So just make sure that the tray that you use is deep enough. This is about 1 inch deep, or about 4 centimeters, something like that. It's a good idea if you just get some margarine and grease it. This is non-stick, but even so, it's much easier to get it out if it's been greased. And just use some baking paper. Just tear a sheet so that it covers this area and just pat it in. and then you're ready to pour the mixture in. Okay, so put a sheet in. It doesn't have to be perfect, it doesn't really matter at all. Just so long as it's touching the bottom and it's stuck to the edges, that'll be fine. If you want to be all fancy, you can trim it if you want, but it's really not necessary. Okay, so we just have to pour the mixture into this tray. It's a good idea to preheat your oven to about, if it's gas, make it about 180 degrees Celsius, and if it's electric, about 170 degrees is probably a good amount. For cakes, you can use a fan force oven. Just be aware that fan force often cooks the top, so you've got a risk of burning the top of the cake. If you can put your electric oven on conventional, so not fan forced, you'll find that it cooks more like a gas oven and it'll cook evenly. It takes about half an hour to cook, and that's pretty much all there is. So if you've got a spatula, it's a good idea to use it because you'll get most of the mixture out of the bowl. Otherwise, you'll have to try your best with a spoon. Or if you use a spoon, you've got the advantage of being able to eat what's left in the bowl. Okay, so just transfer it out of the bowl into the tin, and when your oven is ready, just leave it, preheat it for about 10 minutes or 5 minutes, and then put it in about 165 to 170 degrees Celsius for electric oven, or about 180 degrees Celsius for a gas oven, and just put it in for about half an hour. And generally when you cook cakes, you'll be able to smell it from the oven when it's cooked. If you've got a particularly sealed oven, you might not be able to smell it, but normally you will smell, like it'll fill your kitchen with all kinds of beautiful aromas. So the way to test if it's cooked when it's in the oven, just get a skewer or a knife and just poke it in the middle, because the middle is going to be the thickest bit. If you pull it out and it's clean, then it's ready. If you pull it out and it's still a bit moist, just pull it out completely and just feel with your fingers. If it's cold and moist, it's probably going to be another 10 or 15 minutes. If it's hot and moist, it might be 5 or 10 minutes. So, as always, if something's about to be ready, you should stay somewhere nearby the kitchen, because otherwise, it's always when you just step out for a few minutes, that's when you burn things. So enjoy your chocolate cake. I'll show you the end result when my one's cooked. So I'll see you in half an hour.